Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. This is going to be my first devlog, and today we're going to be tackling a coding challenge. So, the challenge is a game called Fizzbuzz. So, what Fizzbuzz is we count from number 1 and we count till 100 or say 1000, and every time there's a multiple of 3, we say fizz, and if there's a multiple of 5, we say buzz, and if there's a multiple of both, well, it's Fizzbuzz. So that's just the game. Now you might be thinking this is a very easy challenge, but the real test is how efficient can we make it and essentially how versatile it is. So for that I have a couple of ideas. So first we can use functions. So we don't need to recalculate or we don't need to redo the same thing over and over again. We can use functions to speed everything up. Next, we'll use variables to store the output so that we don't need to recalculate the output when we are showing it to the user. And next, we will also be using for loops since we're counting from a loop of 1 to 100. So these are our three main, objects. And the coding language I'm going to be using is Python since it's an easy thing to get started with. However, these same programming principles apply to pretty much every language. So you can use, say, C++ or Java or even Scratch. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm using idle here since it's clean and easy for beginners. So what I just did is, so by default, you can see this, which is the shell. Now the shell is good for basic commands, but what we really want is this, which is a compiler. The compiler takes your code all at once and runs it all at once. So this is much better and it allows you to make more complicated programs. So the way you do it is just go to file and click on new file. Alternatively, you can just do the keyboard shortcut control N. And for this to actually work, you need to save it. So I'm just gonna save it. Okay, so I've saved it, and this is what it's gonna look like. I put it in split screen so we can see the output and we can work on the code at the same time. This is helpful for debugging. Okay, so when we get started to get started with this, we're going to create a function. So I'm gonna create a new function called Fizzbuzz. This is going to take an input of just one number, and the number is gonna obviously have a data type of integer. So what this program should do is it checks if a, which is the number, is divisible by. Now in Python, if you want to check if a number is divisible by another number, all we need to do is use a percentage symbol and then check for that number. So if you want to check it for 3, so this will return a value, basically it will return the remainder. And so if the remainder is 0, we know that this number should be divisible by 3. So all we need to do is check if it's 0. Okay, so now this is the important bit. You can do there's multiple ways to do this. So the easiest way is to check if it's divisible by 3 and 5 and so on. But the more efficient way to do it is create a variable, say output, and define it to be an empty string. Now, if it's divisible by 3, we have to say fizz. So all we need to do is set output to, when I use a formatted string or an F string, and in brackets we'll type in output and fizz. Alternatively, since this is the first number, we can remove this. However, if you want, let's say, more than just fizz and buzz, we really need this since we need to append it. So for this example, we don't need the f string. Next, we're gonna check if a is divisible by 5. Now here, since we already have the output as fizz, we need to append buzz. So to do that, now we need to use the f string. So this type output and then write buzz. So what this is doing is it's appending buzz since it's just adding output and buzz. Now it's as simple as typing return output. So this allows us to calculate the Fizzbuzz of A only one time, and we don't need to recalculate or put any more if statements. So, uh, so after we're done with the main function, we're now going to build the actual for loop. So for this for loop, I'm going to use the range function, which returns a number between the two given numbers. So for example, if we want to calculate the Fizzbuzz of the numbers 1 to 100. So to do that, we just type in 1, comma, 101. Now the reason we're typing in 101 is because the last number gets ignored. So it's 1 through 100. So whereas if I put 1 to 100, it will only display the numbers 1 to 99. So now all we gotta do is print the Fizzbuzz of I. But before that, just to make sure that it's correct, we will also print I. So this code in theory should allow us to return the Fizzbuzz of the numbers 1 through 100. Now there always might be errors, so it's best to check. And yes, it's working. So as you can see, there's a fizz when it's a number divisible by 3, buzz when it's a number divisible by 5, and if it's both, then it's Fizzbuzz. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and make it a bit easier to see. So I'm gonna capitalize fizz and buzz. And yeah, so I'm gonna click on run again. And this time, yes, it's a lot nicer. So yeah, this is how I would code Fizzbuzz. Now there are different alternative methods. So let's just go ahead and save this. Let's go to Notepad. So yes. Now the different method will be using lists and variables as well. So here we also need to create a function Fizzbuzz. But instead of using a string, we just set the output to be a list with two empty strings. So one string is going to be standing for fizz and the other buzz. So make sure they're completely empty, not even a single space. And then you're going to do the same logic. So if and so with this, now we can, instead of using the f string method, we can directly set the first so the first item of this output to be fizz. Likewise, we can do the same to buzz. So yeah. Okay, so if you're wondering why I used the first item of output and set the value to be 0, that's because in Python, the first item of a list has an index of 0 and the second has an index of 1 and so on. So, yeah. Now we're just going to return the output. Okay, so we're going to continue with the for loop. So this time we can't just return the output normally, which you may have noticed. And that's because instead of giving it in a nicely formatted string like this, it would give it in a list format, which would be something like, you know, this. So this isn't as neat as this. So instead of returning the output like this, we are going to return a string. And you guessed it, this is going to be an F string. So for this, we're going to return A, and then we're going to return the first letter, the first item of output, and then directly the second item of output. So this is essentially the same format, this, but now since it's in a list, it's much easier to check for the first item or the um, you know, first item of fizz or the first item of Fizzbuzz. So it's very easy to check if it's divisible by 3 or if it's divisible by 5 since you've already done the calculations, and all we need to do is check if the first item of this is fizz or if the second item is buzz. And also since we have already calculated or formatted the string here, we just need to print the function directly. Okay, just gonna save it and run. So yes, as you can see, this is the same thing. And we've done it in two different methods. So generally, if you want to go for the easier method, I recommend you go with this. However, if you want a bit more versatility, then you can go with this, since you can check the items of the list and the output, and you can add even more functions, and even more customizability is allowed. So yeah, I hope you liked this video, and this is my first devlog. So yes, thanks for watching.